Got a few thoughts on the Seahawks roster off the back of minicamp last week and listening to Pete Carroll and assessing where this team is. And I think it's really encouraging. I think one of the things that you need in the modern NFL are things that are just going to strike fear into opponents. There are many ways to do that. The best one, obviously, is to have a fantastic world-class quarterback whenever you play the Chiefs. You're going to spend the whole week fretting about playing Patrick Mahomes, even if some of the different skill players or the defense on that team aren't playing particularly well on the day. Patrick Mahomes can even have a bit of an off day, gets to the fourth quarter, he can still win a game for his team. You know, they are the most exhilarating, exciting players. They're the most dangerous players in the league. But apart from that, I think a team that has a lot of weapons, a team that can hurt you in many different ways, it's not only one of the most exciting things about to have in the modern NFL, it's also a way that I think you can beat a lot of teams that way. And we've seen it. Look, when you just look at the Eagles, for example, everyone talked about the Eagles defense. It got the defensive coordinator a head coaching job in Arizona as a consequence. The defense playing very, very well. But when it got to the Super Bowl and they had to play Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, the defense didn't really do anything. And the only way for the Eagles to stay competitive in that game was to score a load of points themselves. And because the quarterback and the weapons that they had, they were able to make a game of that. And if it was for a different refereeing decision at the end of that one, they may have even have won that game. But it goes to show that even though the Eagles' defense was vaunted and respected and one of the leading units in the league, they still needed all of those offensive weapons to stay in a big game, in a decisive game in the Super Bowl. And when you look at the Seahawks roster on offense right now, it looks the most explosive it's ever been. It's the receiving options are incredible. When you think of DK Metcalf, there isn't anybody like DK Metcalf in the league. I don't personally feel we've seen the best of DK Metcalf yet. He has got all of the physical talent to be an unstoppable force. And look, that doesn't mean he can be Calvin Johnson necessarily, but he could be more like Mike Evans than he has been so far in his career. And I'd love to see him take that next step next season. And for the Seahawks to find ways for him to become a little bit more unstoppable. I mean, he has games. He has games where they've fed him a lot and he's put up big numbers. But it would be really cool to sort of see him take the next step now and have that Julio Jones style fear factor attached to him, because he's got the physical talent to do it. He's got the determination to do it. We've seen him show it in various games, but just to see it a bit more consistently. Tyler Lockett is well established by now as an incredible receiver, one of the best of his generation. He deserves a lot more respect. He gets respect nationally, but he deserves a lot more. And then when you throw in Jackson Smith and Jigba, and this is the really exciting thing for me, is when you hear players, and we've heard it over the years, when the established veterans start praising rookies very, very early, that there's some talent there. I can remember, just as a small example, Doug Baldwin was raving about Chris Carson when he was a rookie, and he went on to have a good career. Could have had an even better career, but for the injury curse. When you sort of listen to Tyler Lockett speaking about Jackson Smith and Jigba and saying how naturally brilliant he looks and how exciting he is, and basically the sky's the limit, for someone like Tyler Lockett to be saying that makes you just think, wow, how good is this guy going to be? And then Pete Carroll said something similar. He said he was naturally gifted, natural hands, his route running. These are all things that Tyler Lockett was praising as well. When you are talking in this way about a player like that, in the first few weeks of his pro career, it just gives you the impression that there's something a bit special here. And I just can't wait to see him play, especially because he's going to be wide receiver 3. And this is a way that the Seahawks can really hurt teams. As an opponent, how are you going to cover all of these guys? And then, they're even talking up D. Eskridge as having a good camp. They're talking about even the undrafted guys like Jake Bobo playing well. They obviously like Derek Young. There are players on this roster in the receiving positions that are going to really test opponents. And I just can't wait to see that. And Geno Smith must be licking his chops at the prospect of facing what is essentially a prove-it year for his contract, the way that it's structured, when he's got all of these weapons. They've just got to find a consistent way to do it. They've got to find a way to exploit opponents. They can't be too predictable. We saw last year that they did find games. I can remember the Arizona game with the little bootlegs, getting the receivers in the move, getting the tight ends on the move. They featured the tight ends a lot in that game. This is the Arizona road game. And they really dominated that opponent doing this pretty much the same thing, exploiting the same thing. It'd be nice to see them find ways to beat opponents work out what their weaknesses are with all these receiving options next year, and they have got the potential to be unbelievable. To be I don't think it's too ambitious to say that if everyone stays healthy and if Geno Smith has a good year, that this could be a top 5 offense. They've just got so many weapons, and it extends beyond, obviously, the receivers. They've got 3 tight ends that they really like. There's no reason why Noah Fant, physically at least, can't be one of the top tight ends in the league. He's not delivered on that top 20 pick potential so far, but what better year to do it than in a contract year? And they've got to find a way, again, to make those tight ends a consistent force, to make them really challenge opponents, and that's something they've got to work on this year. And then you look at the 2 running backs that they've got. I'm still seeing people complaining about the fact that they spent a 2nd round pick on Zach Charbonnet, and I just do not get it at all. Because if Ken Walker gets hurt, what then? I'm sorry, but over the years, the Seahawks have not done a good job just plugging any old running back in there. They're not one of those teams who can do that. They need talent at the running back position, and now they've got it. They can not flog either of these players. They can use them as a 1-2 punch. If Ken Walker misses a couple of games, you've got Zach Charbonnet, and vice versa. If one of them goes down for the season, which is entirely possible, it's the NFL. It's not season over in terms of the running game. You've still got you've got the other player who can come in. To me, it was a great pick, and now you've got talent there. They're both good receivers. They're all-round backs. They're incredibly explosive. This could end up being the best running back combo in the league, easily. I think it's very, very exciting. You just look at the makeup of this offense, the amount of weapons they've got. Very, very exciting. Hopefully the 2 young tackles can take another step forward for that offensive line. The one thing they probably really lack is like one really experienced, proven offensive lineman, veteran guy, or a couple of those guys. They don't have that. Hopefully, though, they will be able to develop those players over the next couple of years. Hopefully, the tackles will just sort of emerge into that role. Maybe Damian Lewis can do it, or Phil Haynes. But, there is some young potential there on the offensive line, which is good to see. So I think the offense is just, it's in a great position. And when you sort of look overall at the roster, I think that the Seahawks and the Lions are on a similar trajectory when the season finished. But I would have put the Lions ahead of the Seahawks, because I'm not sure that this Seahawks team would have gone and done what they did in Lambeau on the final game of the season, when there was nothing at stake. I'm not sure. Maybe they would have done. Green Bay were a bit of a busted flush at that point. But I just think Detroit were ahead of Seattle when the season ended, and then both had the kind of draft stock to really push themselves on and elevate themselves and take a step forward. And I think the Seahawks had really smashed out the park with the draft to take that step forward, and I think they've overtaken the Lions at this point. I think the Lions draft class was a little bit of a wasted opportunity. They didn't really make the most of it. They've still got a lot of talented players. I think they know what they are defensively a lot more than what the Seahawks do at this point. But at the same time, I don't think they made the most of this offseason, and I think the Seahawks did. So when I see these sort of power rankings putting Detroit ahead of Seattle, I'm not too sure about that. I think the Seahawks, the biggest question for the Seahawks, obviously, is going to be fitting this defense together, making it function in a way that it hasn't functioned for years, avoiding that sort of slow start that really pushes them behind the 8 ball, not giving up loads of running yards, not giving up loads of passing yards, not having to work things out on the fly, not having Clint Hurt come out and Pete Carroll saying, we're going to work it out, we're going to get this right, for 6 weeks to start the year. They don't have to be a top 10 unit, they've just got to make sure they're not as bad as they have been, and that's going to be the big key. But, fingers crossed, this is a defense now that has had a lot of draft stock pumped into it, a lot of resource, $40 million at safety, bringing Bobby Wagner back, Devin Bush, top 5 pick at cornerback, 2 recent 2nd round picks on pass rushers. There's a lot invested here. So it's go time now. And look, I think there's a lot of pressure on Clint Hurt. I think he's got to prove that he's a defensive coordinator, and I think the Seahawks need to be ruthless if he can't work it out this year. I think this is the time now. The Seahawks, for me, need another off season to be at their absolute peak best, but we need to be sort of seeing big moves forward now to sort of where we're sat here in a 12 months time thinking, the Seahawks with another great off season can be a legit contender. So that's going to be sort of, I think there's a lot of pressure on Clint Hurt, but we'll give him a chance to work that out. I did think it was kind of typical Carroll that he was praising Mike Jackson, saying he had the best camp of anybody. He loves that competition, and he'll think, well, we've drafted someone 5th overall at cornerback. Talk up Mike Jackson a little bit, because it's his job that, everyone's assuming Devin Witherspoon's going to take. So Carroll will be loving all of that. That if you know, and I'm not suggesting that he's lying that Mike Jackson probably did have the best camp. He's not going to lie there, but I would suggest that he's not going to usurp the 5th overall pick or Tariq Woolen. Maybe one of those guys can move inside. To me, I don't know about that. Can Mike Jackson play there? They're going to play Devon Witherspoon in there. I don't think it'd be the worst thing in the world for Devon Witherspoon to play nickel, because he's kind of got those tackling qualities, and I think he can stick and he can do those crossing routes, those jet sweeps. He follows them very well. He showed that at Illinois. So not the worst thing in the world, but you know, top pick on a nickel corner is not necessarily, I think, what a lot of people envisage when you're sort of talking about top of the draft. So outside quarterback is a premium position. So we'll see on that, but good to know that they've you know, for years we've talked about, you know, they've just gone off the boil a bit with the cornerback depth, and now they seem to be loaded at cornerback again. So that's really good to see. And look, overall, I think it's very, very positive. The nose tackle position, you know, they're still a little bit like, you know, Carroll was a little bit lukewarm on Cam Young, actually, when he was speaking. Nothing negative, just sort of like, yeah, we need to see him, you know, we need to see him a bit, you know, in certain situations and stuff, like getting into training camp and all of that. But what they really need for me is the one thing that's really lacking on this roster right now is so that grizzled veteran who can just put his arm around Cam Young, so there's not loads of pressure on the rookie to succeed and start straight away. They haven't got that. Maybe they can find that before the season begins. Not a lot of options out there right now, though. Could be a bit of an issue that we're talking about throughout the season. We'll see what happens. Anyway, those are my thoughts today on the Seahawks after minicamp. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Don't forget to like the video, it really helps, and subscribe to the channel for more Seahawks views coming forward. You won't miss a video if you are subscribed. SeahawksDraftBlog.com for more analysis. Until next time, enjoy your summer. Bye for now.